Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and it's that time of the week. We get to take a look at the coolest new knives that have just hit our shelves. Let's check them out. All right, we're going to start this week with a more affordable option. This is a new knife from Kershaw called the Endgame. Comes in about $65 right now, so not too bad. You're getting some pretty good materials for that. D2 steel, about 3¼ inch, and the handle really gets kind of maybe the lion's share of the complexity in this case, because we've got three materials going on. We've got stainless steel that provides kind of the backbone as well as the frame lock, and then we've also got inlays of both a GFN and copper there. So you got a really interesting look. Could have been a good answer for somebody looking for a either cyberpunk or steampunk knife maybe a few weeks ago on our Knife AQ segment who was asking.
There is a difference between those two things.
There is a difference. This kind of straddles the line maybe a little bit between the two. Maybe. You let me know in the comments. It's pretty cool looking in any case. Definitely something a bit more eye-catching than a lot of the generic $50 D2 flippers out there, even though this is $65 D2 flipper. That they may come with like liner locks and some G10 on the sides. This thing definitely has a much more interesting look. Still nice and capable too, I think. It's a fairly narrow handle overall, but I can get all four of my fingers on it. Feels pretty good. We've also got a nice deep carry pocket clip here. Holds it very truly deep. Not a lot's going to be sticking out there at all, and that is reversible as well. I like the blade shape as well. It's got a nice D2 finish, or nice stone washed finish, which I like. Nice sweep to it and a good acute point. So you've got a good cross section for a lot of EDC uses. And a lot of you folks out there will be pleased to know this is not a SpeedSafe assisted opening knife. We've got KVT ball bearings in that pivot, and you got nice snappy action in any case, and it's gonna be a little bit easier to close as well. Pretty cool shape overall, and it looks a little bit different, and it doesn't cost too much, so a lot going on for that end game right there. All right, next up we've got a new knife from Kizer and Chris Conway, who of course designed the original Sheepdog XL, or all the sizes of the Sheepdog for Kizer. We've got a new design with them right now called the Deviant. Two different versions right here. Both of them come in about $150. So actually pretty decently priced. And when we go over the materials, you are getting some premium stuff here overall. Two versions. You've got the green linen micarta with a copper bolster and black linen with a white G10 bolster. Both have a pretty cool look going on. Different kind of different styles of classiness there. Now the blade steel on these guys is M390. It's just over 3 inches long and a pretty powerful sheep's foot shape going on here. It's not a super thin blade or super thick. It's kind of that good cross section. It's going to be nice and sturdy at this type of length. M390 steel, you've got a lot of edge retention, and it feels like it's ready to kind of push through some cuts. Just enough handle length here for 4 fingers as well, at least for my slightly larger than average hands. And yeah, it's just gonna look really nice while it's doing that stuff too. This is a liner locking knife, and we do have ball bearings in the pivot. No flipper in this case, but you can see where you might see a flipper. You do see this little cutout in the handle, which kind of echoes the Sheepdog knives a little bit, which would make sense given it's the same designer. We've also got a folded over pocket clip. It's not quite deep carry, but it is inset and flush with flush screw heads right there as well. Actually, the screw heads, didn't look at this closely enough beforehand. The screw heads actually screw in from the inside of the knife itself, so they don't protrude at all out of the end of the pocket clip there. So it's nice and smooth going in and out of the pocket. But rather than flipping, you do have some nice action from those thumb studs instead. As you can see, it pops open quite nicely there. Overall, just a really cool take on kind of a classy gentleman's utility knife here. All right, we're going to keep the classy train rolling here a little bit with a new folder from Fallkniven. Actually, it's some new fancier versions of the PXL knife. Previous versions didn't come with inlays. It was a more basic handle materials going on. But several new options with some fancier inlays, and these guys come in about $293 right now. Blade length is about 3.5, and you've got LMAX steel here as well, which is not something you see too often on a Fallkniven, but it's pretty nicely executed. You still have kind of their signature convex grind that comes right down to zero, right down to that zero edge. No secondary bevel right there at the edge at all. So it's going to be very easy to maintain with a strop especially, and it's just got a really nice kind of silky look and silky feel to the knife in the hand as well. It's just really nicely done. We've got a liner lock here, stainless steel bolsters, and the inlay material on this particular knife is called Elferin. It's kind of an imitation replacement for actual ivory, and they look really nicely done. You can see some kind of grain and patterning in there. It doesn't look like a man-made material, especially polished up like this when you see some of that stuff kind of coming out of the interior like that. Really what I think this knife does the best is it kind of has the feel of a handmade custom folding knife, especially the type that you've that might not be like the most modern designs out there, but kind of a real great classic handmade folding knife. You get those custom vibes here in a production format. It's got just silky opening, really classy materials, and I think a classic looking design as well. All right, one more large classy folder. We've got, at least at the time we're filming this, we've got a small handful of Sebenza 31s with the black micarta inlay, large with drop point blades. Very cool, coming in about $550 right now, American made, and Sebenza 31s have been kind of hard to get a hold of, even still. Like, these do go fairly quickly, so I hope there's still some in stock by the time this video posts. But it's the first time I've been able to hold this particular variation since they've released it. I don't have the money for one right now, but this is kind of the one I would purchase were I to be purchasing a 31 at this point. I've always liked the micarta inlaid versions. I'm still not I'm not quite sure how I feel about the single piece inlay. I really like the old double piece, or the old double inlays there on the front, but it is growing on me. It's got a nice kind of graceful arc to it, and it looks really nice, works really nice with that blade as well. Speaking of the blade, 3.6 inches S35 VN steel. It's got a bit of a stone-washed finish to it on this one as well, which I really like. Of course, the main differences over the old Sebenza, the 21, is you've got a ceramic ball in the lock bar interface for a lot of longevity, they say, on the Nkosi models that have had that. They've had really, really good results with that. And then they've angled the pocket clip a little bit so that it doesn't rest on the lock bar anymore either. Overall, man, you can't go wrong with the Sebenza even today. All right, next up, kind of an updated classic, the Boker Barlow Prime series that we've been seeing from them have been really nice. Kind of a really nice way to do old school slip joint patterns. Is the pattern itself is kind of very faithful to old school Barlows in this case, but the materials are just upgraded. These come in about $128 right now. We've got a 2 3/4 inch blade of N690 steel here, so not just a simple carbon or stainless, which is what you might traditionally expect. And on this particular one, black micarta for the handles. And we've seen kind of modern slip joints with like micarta and upgraded steels, but this one, it does it a little bit differently. It doesn't feel like some of those other hyper modern slip joints. It feels like an old school slip joint made the old school way, just with kind of the better materials that are available to makers nowadays. It's really cool, really nicely done. The action on them is pretty nice. You got a nice half stop there, snaps closed very nicely, and it's going to be a very nice customer in your pocket. Bit of contour to the handle scales, no pocket clip to stick out and make any kind of hot spot, nothing like that. Just really nicely finished. Got that classic, I say classic Barlow spear point shape, but it has a little bit of a drop to it in this case. It's going to make a really nice cutter, I think. You'll be able to use that tip a little bit nicer for kind of some surface work if you wanted to do that sort of thing. Really cool. All right, next up, we got a lot of fixed blades today, you guys, which I'm very excited about. But first, we have a new pocket fixed blade from Boker. This is the Daily Knives AK1. Actually a couple different versions, but these are two of them right now, coming in just over $200. Now, these are German-made Bokers. These are not imported from the Far East, and they feel really nicely put together. Two different blade shapes. You've got this kind of Wharncliffe, or some might call it a reverse Tonto, but we'll call it a modified Wharncliffe, and this nice clip point profile as well. And the steel's RWL 34 from Damasteel, so essentially that's something along the lines of CPM 154, kind of very similar in that regard, and really nice as well. We've got two different colors of burlap micarta. You've got the mustard burlap here, which has a nice amber kind of honey look to it. And this kind of purplish one they call bison burlap. Looks pretty nice. Now, as partial as I am to like clip and drop point blades in general, I'm really digging this kind of this modified Wharncliffe shape. Going to be a really nice kind of heavier duty utility knife, even though it's not an overbuilt design per se, but it does feel very sturdy and it feels secure and feels like you could really rip through some cuts. Now, the thing, of course, that makes this a pocket fixed blade is the sheath, and I really like what they've done here. It's a leather sheath, first of all. It's not Kydex, so it's going to be a little bit kind of nicer in and out of the pocket, and they've given it an ulti-clip here on the front end, so you can stick it in, have it right where you want it to be in your pocket, and then clamp it down, and the sheath is going to stay put. You're not going to pull the sheath out of the pocket when you go to draw that blade. That'll just come out, be ready to work. You could even throw a nice lanyard on there if you want to make it even easier to pull out. There's a nice, nicely sized loop there on the back. Really cool, and you guys know I'm always excited to see more pocket fixed blades. All right, next up we've got some new versions of the Bow River from Spyderco. Been a very popular knife, and we've got two new colors, well, one new handle color and two blade finish options. And these guys come in about $40 for the satin version and about $45 for the black coated version. You guys know I'm partial to satin, but I gotta admit that black does look very good. But the handles themselves are still G10 like the original black and white G10 version, but it's a combo here that, I don't know, I might not have envisioned it on this knife, but I think it turned out really nicely. You've got layers of layers of green and layers of kind of sand or tan coloration going on. A really interesting look. It's a little bit subtler. It's not super flashy, but there's something to it that I think is really nice. We've also got removable scales in this case. You can see here we've got, looks like T6 Torx screw heads here rather than the standard pins on the original version. Sheath is still kind of that same standard leather, black, constructed very nicely. You got a nice thick welt there on the side and some heavier rivets. It should stand up very nicely. And at either price, but especially at that $40 price point, these things are going to be really nice, not just for kind of outdoorsmen, hunters, and fishers specifically, but I also like I like the idea of these in the kitchen as well. It's going to make a nice small utility knife, and a set of these would make some great steak knives as well. All right, next up we're going to come to another trailing point knife, Buck Kalinga. This is a limited edition for 2021 only, and it's got a kind of the price premium to go with it, coming in about $320 right now. It is American made. We've got S35 VN steel in this case, about 4 3/4 of an inch. Ruggedly built. You've got, what's that? About 5/32 of an inch thickness there at the spine, judging by my eyeball calipers. And it's just got a nice, that classic Kalinga sweep to it. Got a brass bolster, burlap micarta handles in this case with some standard pins attached there. Feels pretty good. Maybe a little bit, could have done a little bit more rounding here at the forefinger area, but it is put together very nicely. It's nice and seamless, kind of nothing to worry about there. We do have a nice leather sheath. You can see here we've got a nice broad flap here on the side for a little bit of retention. We've also got a hard insert in there, so it's a little harder to actually like accidentally slice through a bit of the leather, which can be a concern maybe on a larger, bodacious blade like that. And the other thing that's nice, sometimes we'll see, even with American-made knives, sometimes the sheaths will wind up being imported, but this guy made right here in the US as well. All right, next up we've got a new tops. This is the Brush Wolf, comes in about $160. And definitely a bit more kind of utilitarian in vibe than that Kalinga there. 1095 carbon steel. We've got 6.5 inches of it, more like 3/16 of an inch thick on this particular one. It has a little bit of kind of that, kind of bullnose Skinner or maybe even slightly butcher knife inspired shape to it, but nice continuous sweep to the belly. If we fold it in half, it might almost be symmetrical. I'm not quite sure. Stout saber grind with a nice sharp edge there on it as well, and it's it's just got a nice shape. It's definitely feels like it would follow a curl really nicely if you're making some feather sticks. But you've also got enough handle here and enough kind of girth to the blade. You can choke back a little bit, do a little bit of light chopping with it as well. Certainly going to be sturdy enough, and thanks to that blade shape, you've got a little bit more forward weight balance as well. Kind of the sawback nature here to the spine is more kind of like that notching saw, and you do have a section of crisp spine here, so you can strike a fire steel with it without kind of resorting to having that all the way back. You've got a more gentle space for your thumb to rest when you're kind of pushing up on that. Got micarta handles. We've got a bow drill divot on both sides. Just make sure to, if you're using this as the bearing block for your bow drill fire, make sure it's sheathed first. And then you got a protruding tang there at the back where you can do a little bit of hammering if you need to. Sheath in this case is not Kydex, which sometimes I might expect to see with that bow drill divot, but you've got a nice heavy duty leather here with a snap enabled dangler attachment on the end. All right, next up for some more affordable, bigger fixed blades, actually priced quite nicely. Two new designs from Ka-Bar. We've got the IFB drop point and the IFB trailing point. Both of them coming in same price, about 38 bucks. The handles on these are the same, so I'll talk about one first. Plenty of length here. My hands have plenty to hold on to there. Little bit, even if on larger hands, if you go past the beak there, which maybe if you have larger hands and are wearing gloves, that might happen. It's got a nice gentle curve to it, so at least you'll still be able to grab on towards the end. But in any case, a lot of handle there, and I really appreciate that. G10 construction, and they aren't considered removable scales. Although I dare say at this price, if you could find a way to pop these scales off, it would make a cool DIY project as well. Blade steel here is an 8CR stainless. Interesting thing about 8CR is it's not the most stain resistant stainless out there. Certainly fine, but in this case you do get a nice black coating to kind of help you even further, and it kind of mimics the look of some of the kind of the higher end carbon steel survival knives out there. And I really think it's kind of that survival tactical knife genre where these knives are going to shine, especially as a budget option out there. Now, Ka-Bar is calling this trailing point and drop point, but really that drop point is a straight clip point, and that trailing point does have a straight spine, and yeah, I'll give him that. I'll give him trailing point. But we've got 6 inches of blade on that trailing point, and about 4 3/4 on the smaller one. Very nice size though. Very, like I said, easy to hold on to. You've got plenty to work with. Very nice. The smaller knife has kind of a bit of its own vibe going on, although maybe you could say this is a budget alternative to Ka-Bar's Boker BK18, the tweener Boker harpoon that came out last year. You don't get a harpoon point, but you have kind of a similar profile maybe going on. And the larger knife kind of reminds me a little bit of the Girage Turok knife that Ka-Bar makes. So again, some nice budget options if those things are kind of beyond your budget these days. Now the sheaths on these are both pretty much the same. Hard plastic with positive retention. It does come with 2 belt loops kind of permanent or screwed on to either side there. If you're not a big fan of that particular attachment method, the holes here will fit a large tech lock as well. All right, a couple weeks ago, I showed you the Night Elements Kukri flippers, but I didn't actually get a chance to show you the fixed blades. But you bought them up real quick, so we had to wait to get our next batch in before I could show them to you. But here they are now. This is the V2 Ultra Kukri fixed blade from Night Elements, designed, of course, by Jason Knight. Prices on these are about $245 to start for a G10 with stonewash blade option, and $10 more for the black blade options, which can either come with G10 or the really nice green micarta here. And the blades are cool. You definitely got a lot of kind of menacing durability there. Nice ripping pull cut capability going on. But for me, kind of the star of the show here is the handle itself. These handle scales are expertly contoured, man. They have a nice swell here in the middle, good swell or good flare at the back. As soon as I put my hands around this guy, yeah, no, it feels at home for sure. Definitely super comfortable. Good hard work option if you're kind of ripping through a lot of boxes or a lot of kind of sheeting or other heavier material, stuff like that. Got that aggressive blade shape paired with a comfortable handle. It's going to work very well. Now it's a 5-inch blade. You've got N690 steel. You got that cool fuller look going on. It's going to be pretty easy to carry as well thanks to the sheath system. It is Kydex, and they include 2 snap loops here. So for, there's a lot of folks out there that may like to carry a fixed blade like this, horizontal cross draw that's going to work really well. You could set this up for scout carry also if you like. If you wanted to use a tech lock or something like that on this sheath, the small tech lock is going to fit this guy rather than the large. Very cool. All right, couple more. We've got a couple harder use folders here to end things out. DPX HEST F Decade Edition right here. It's a limited edition. This particular one, you can see we've got 1/16 there on the backspacer, which I would assume means these are all serialized. Shape is the same HEST you know and love. 3.15-inch blade. We've got M390 steel in this case. This particular one is made for DPX by Lion Steel, one of their premier partners in their manufacturing facility. We've got that nice thick blade stock, definitely kind of overbuilt to take a beating with that frame lock there on the back, and green canvas micarta on the front scale, which I don't think we've seen on any of the HESTs out there so far. At least none of the folders. You do see that on some of the fixed blades, of course. So that's pretty cool. We don't get a roto block on this particular frame lock. You don't have that extra secondary safety, but you get a nice thick slab of titanium there for the lockup. Deep carry pocket clip, which is reversible, and that nice glass breaker there on the back. And of course, this comes with the tool to adjust that if you wish. And then of course that signature element as well, that cutout in the spine. Use it as a bottle opener, or as a pocket deployer. It's going to do you quite nicely. And last but not least, the new Presidio Auto from Benchmade is here, coming in about $255 right now. And kind of the same story as their recently reintroduced Adamas series, where they upgraded from D2 to crew wear blade steel. Likewise, that upgrade on that knife was really designed to up the toughness of that folder. And they went for a similar goal here, but instead of crew wear, we get M4 steel here. So very, very, very tough stuff indeed. Even though it's a decently thin blade stock, it's kind of just a good, just right thickness, you're still gonna have a lot of durability that just some of the higher edge retention stainless steels out there won't be able to match. We get a nice gray coating on the blade, nice and smooth. It's got a little bit of a matte texture to it, but it's not all that rough, with partial serrations as well, and some cool bronze aluminum on the handles. Of course, as far as autos go, this is one of those fully ambidextrous designs thanks to their auto axis mechanism, that spine-mounted safety, which works in the open or closed position, and that deep carry pocket clip, almost completely deep carry, that is reversible as well. But I really like these guys. I really like the Presidio in general, but pull that safety back, pull on the lock bar, blade's gonna open quite nicely. Very cool. All right, that is all I've got to show you this week. Hope you enjoyed the video as always. And make sure to let me know your favorites down below and click the links in the description if you want to get your hands on any of these cool knives. While you're over at our website, make sure you sign up for our knife rewards program so that at least you're going to earn some free money to spend on your next knife when you buy one of these knives today. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center signing off. See you next time.